Good morning, class. So today we're going to be learning about food webs and energy flow. So last week, if you remember, we went over ecosystems and communities and the parts that make up communities, which were the abiotic and biotic factors. So if we can remember, the abiotic factors were the non-living factors of the ecosystem or community, and the biotic factors were the living parts. So can anyone just give me a little reminder and give an example of an abiotic and a biotic factor? Yep, Jason? Yep, fantastic. So Jason's just said an abiotic factor and a biotic factor. The abiotic, pH and temperature. That's correct and that's fantastic. That's exactly right. And for the biotic, yep, trees, animals, plants and animals, anything living, fantastic. So we can all agree on that, I'm sure. So also last week we touched a bit on how matter and energy is flowing through these systems, and I got you all to get in little groups and collaborate and just come up with a simple food chain and draw it up quickly so we could have a little look at that and see how you were doing that just as a quick recap. And I've got one from a group last week, which is quite simple here. So this is a great example of a simple food chain. And as a recap as well, if you can remember, that the plant was the producer, insect was the primary consumer, mouse secondary consumer, owl tertiary consumer, and in some food chains, if they're longer, it'll go on and on. And in food webs as well. So that's fantastic. So in this, what was the important thing we learned about the arrows? What were they showing? That was the most important thing that we need to get from last week, the one major thing. Yep, so someone just said that they show what's eating what, but that's not quite right. That can get very confusing when we're looking at food webs because they're a lot more complex. So the arrows, yep, Christian? Yep, fantastic. So Christian just said that the arrows are showing the flow of energy. So that's correct. Arrows are showing the flow of energy in food chains and food webs. So we need to remember that. So write that down if you've forgotten or didn't get that down last week. So, food chains, that was a recap. Now I'm going to give you the definition of food web while we move on to that topic. So I've highlighted or underlined some of the words in this definition because they're very important to consider when we're thinking and looking at food webs. So here's the definition of a food web. A network of food chains or feeding relationships by which energy and nutrients are passed on from one species of living organism to another. So here I want you to highlight these words. Network, relationships, very important words because we're not just looking at a singular relationship between two species, we're looking at multiple relationships in a network between lots of different species and how this energy and nutrients are being passed from each of them. So highlight those words, very important. So I hope you've all got that definition down and are thinking about those words. And so I also just want to show you, I've given you all a handout of a food chain and a food web today, and we're going to look at that. And I want you to maybe even draw up a diagram and do some comparisons between the two and see the differences that you can pick out. So I've given you this food web and food chain picture, just show you here. Yeah, so that's comparing the two. And when we're looking at that, because next week I found this cool app where we're going to make our own food webs. When you're just comparing a food chain to a food web, I've got these main questions down I want you to think about as well. So the first is, how do animals in an ecosystem get their energy? So where are they getting it from? You've got to think about, are they getting it from the sunlight? Are they getting it from another plant or an animal by consuming them? 2, how are living things connected in an ecosystem? So how are they connected? What's their relationship? What's going on there? And thirdly, which living things are in competition? So you might be looking at a food web and see 2 larger fishes that are competing just for one smaller fish species. So they're in competition for that one food source. So what does that mean? These are all very important things to think about when we're looking at food webs. So hopefully we've covered a little bit about comparison between food webs and food chains, how food webs are a lot more complex, seeing and beginning to understand how nutrients and energy are flowing through these systems. And next week we'll be able to start creating our own food webs by reading a little bit about information about different animals, what they're eating, and piecing this together. Thank you very much.